So, hello everybody, welcome. I'm very happy to be here and to present to you something that I have done. I'm Meirav Kravitz. You can hear I'm from Israel. I am coming from South Florida, from Miami Beach, Hebrew Academy, and I'm there the head of foreign languages and Hebrew studies in the middle school and high school, and I've been working with a Hebrew program called Bishvil Ivrit that is coming from Israel, from the CET, which is the Center for Educational Technology. And I've been a teacher and a mentor of that program for many years. And this was really the jumping point to something that I did together with my Better Lesson coach, Roman, who is not here right now, but he is really amazing. So yeah, you're going to... All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about, I'm sure everybody heard about project-based learning. It's nothing new, but I had a little twist, or double twist into there, which is interdisciplinary, multilingual project-based learning. So we had few subject area together, and we threw in the Hebrew language together with the English language. And what you're going to see today is something that you can really take and put in any grade. I've done it in 8th grade, and but you can do it from, I just talked to somebody in preschool, and you can do it until high school. And really, the idea is the same idea, just like modified a little bit. So as you can see from the picture, it's just to get your brain really, really working hard. What is the project-based and experiential learning? What does it do to us? Okay, so these are some of the things that it helps students achieve. You know, they have to identify a problem. They have to develop a question, a real-life question, and then look for resources, not Google resources, but real things that you cannot find an answer on Google, to answer that question, to solve that problem. And then the other part is the presentation. The presentation has to be not just in front of the class, but something real, something for people who might be really stakeholders, who will be interested in doing something with that solution that they found. Okay, so everything is really about real life issues, not pretend fake project. The teachers come and say, oh, we're having a project today, let's do it. So that's really the base, and if you want to go more into that, you will see that in the Better Lesson and in your agenda, there are several links into the Better Lesson Lab, which give you how to build driving question, which is the beginning of the Better Lesson project, or how to plan a better lesson. So these are things that helped me as I was working through that Better Lesson project. And the reason why we do it is really to prepare our students for the world. Okay, our world is complex. Our world has a lot of things meeting together. Students working in team are really a model for what they're going to do in real life. And then we have the whole global issue. So that's the part I put in. The global issue meaning connecting few countries together. And it doesn't have to be Israel, but Israel is really coming from where we are at school. But it could be if there's a Spanish learning in your school, there's a huge Spanish community to connect to, and so on. Diversity learning, being open to different cultures, and how you communicate with people in their language, and why is it important instead of using Google Translate. Okay, sharing ideas across culture make you open to other cultures, make you understanding, make you accepting to those cultures. So in this case, we used Israel, like I said, but it doesn't even have to be a different language. We have so many countries who speak English that have a different culture and have a different way of addressing things. So why not use that as part of our project? Okay, so move on. Okay. So I'm going to say some benefits of curriculum integration. And if you have done anything, I would really like to hear from you about some more. Okay, when you integrate different subject area of the curriculum, okay, it reinforces skills of those different areas in a new area. It's like putting into practice things that you learned in one area in almost real-life situation. Okay, the student gets a richer academic experience, and they are able to apply those skills. They develop the ability to solve real problem in situations that they might encounter in the future, and they collaborate, and they develop global digital citizenship, meaning what to be aware of, what can we, easily access, and so on. It stimulates creativity, curiosity, self-esteem. I want to hear some from you. Who have done anything that, collaborated with few areas of studies and found some benefits? Yes?
So we do something called Green City at our school, where I teach grade 5. So it's our 2 social studies units are government and First Nations. So we focus on the government unit, but then we do, with math, first they need to design a map of a city. They need to design a city based on the components of a municipality. They need to actually make some of their buildings 3D and then calculate the area and volume of those buildings, and they need to be certain shapes as well, so it can't just be like a standard rectangular prism. They have to get creative with their shapes. They can do domes and however they want it. And then they also they have to write a letter to a member of municipality based on an issue that's arisen or it's come up in the community. They also have to decide how it's going to be powered, so that's their energy unit in science. So it's end of year, so they've learned everything by this point. They have to decide how it's going to be powered. And then this year we're incorporating French. I'm Canadian, so it's French. We learn French, so French is going to be part of that as well. And then it's also a Hebrew day school, so Hebrew is going to be a part of that as well this year. It's like the most unbelievable project, and so
So tell me some of the benefits you saw that student gained out of that.
I mean, it was nice to kind of remove the structure from the day, because it wasn't just like, okay, now we're going to do language, and now we're going to do math, and now we're going to do science. It was, we're going to spend an hour and a half, and we're just going to crush this project. We're just going to work on this, and we are going to make it come to life. And you're going to need to not just use this skill for this 20 minutes and this skill for this 20 minutes. It was the whole time that they were working on it, it was free. It was just like you move through it at your own pace, and you work through the problems as they arise, and you go through it. For the kids who didn't like having so much structure, it was really nice to sort of just like have this blended learning opportunity where they could focus on the thing that they felt that they were good at, or that they felt was their strength. And for the kid that's like, I'm a math kid, they were like, well, let me take care of like the map and the way that it's going to look, and I can structure it, and I can start creating the shapes and do all of that. And for the child that feels that they're really strong in language, they're like, well, I want to start writing a letter. I want to start working on that. And you don't have the choice to not do the things you don't like, but you get to work on your strengths, and you get to see.
And I'm happy you said that, because when you said no structure, I was thinking, but there is a structure. There is a hidden structure, right? And you have to build that structure. So there is a lot of choice, but as a teacher, you need to plan ahead, and you have to build that infrastructure for them to be able to make those choices. So how do we actually do it? So how did I do it? And it sounds a little bit similar to what you said, but it actually grew up from the student themselves. In our Hebrew program, there is a section that talks about Tel Aviv. And in Tel Aviv, there is a park. It was a garbage landfill called Chiria, and the city or the municipality there put money in it and changed it into a park called Park Ariel Sharon, which is an ecological recycling park, but also have a museum and a place for kids to play, and a show and concert area, and a lot of different things, bicycle riding area. So it's a real place. And it's in our book because that section is about Tel Aviv, and this is part of the things that Tel Aviv have. As they read this, the students and worked on it in Hebrew, they were asking lots of questions, and they were like talking about in Florida, where we are. I mean, we have this mountain. Florida is very flat. There's no mountains. The only mountain we have is a landfill. So when you drive from Miami to Orlando, you always pass by this mountain, which I think they call it Trash Mountain, Trashmore. So the kids were laughing like, oh, why don't we see if we can do something like that? And I picked on that. And before I even, continued their conversation, I said, okay, let me see if we can build that infrastructure. So I met with the other teachers and I said, who is interested to tap into this? I actually met with 4 teachers, and only 3 decided they want to go in. I met with a science teacher, which it calls for it. The math teacher said, yeah, we can do a business plan. And I spoke to the English teacher, and she said, I have a lot on my plate. We don't do that. All right, so she lost, because you'll see where it went. So we kind of like had an idea in our mind, and then talking with my coach, with Better Lesson, looking at the strategies, looking at everything that Better Lesson has to offer, gave me the ways to put it into real plan. And then when I came to the student, I said, okay, let's do some brainstorming, but I already had a little plan, and then together we brainstormed into a really an actual way to transform it into how do we plan a place like that in Florida. What do we need to know? What is the information? So they contact the actual place in Israel. They wrote emails in Hebrew. They got information. How much money did it cost? How much time did it take? How did they actually clear the smell? And they had a lot of questions about the smells. That was one of the main issues. And they found out that there's, you know, industrial air freshener and all kinds of things. And then they had to compare. Is this the same in Florida? Is the same kind of park? And they found different information. So one of the things they found out is that the place in Florida is actually an ash. They burn the garbage. So you cannot build on it because it's very soft. So you can do things around it. And then they did different things. They each of these are actually clickable. Some of these are actually clickable. So if you want to click. Okay, so they did a whole Google questionnaire and Google form, and they found out why different, and, you know, from the student, why would it be beneficial and so on. If you want to go back to the presentation, and they did a business plan where they, you know, used Excel. This was all using Google Suite apps, and they did a whole business plans. What is it going to take? What are the things they need to worry about? Salary, landscaping, marketing, architect, and so on. Go back. And they visited a landfill and a recycling place in Florida. Wait, hopefully you can see the movie now, but in a sec. So they did this whole thing, and then they did a whole presentation, Shark Tank model. We brought a person who is a business personality in the community. We had somebody who is with the city, you know, working with the city on building and all that. And they wore suits, they had to present, and in front of their classmates, and they presented their idea, and they had to ask them questions. And it didn't go through, like, they had good questions for them, and it wasn't perfect. And their business plan had holes, but they really learned how to do this in a real way, and they loved it. And they built a model, and there's another model of what it would look like around the park, what they would put on the park, and they learned about different things to do with science, and how long does it take for garbage to decompose, and so on. So this was a whole, you know, huge unit. It wasn't very long. It took us about 8 weeks. It sounds like we did it all year. It took us 8 weeks, and they were able to really learn so much of things that were not even the curriculum, that was not even our plan to teach them, but until today they talk about it. So if you look, we were trying to play the movie here, but we're not connected to sound. But in your agenda, if you want to take, it's a 5-minute clip of the student, the teacher, everybody talking about it, and then I'll tell you where we took it from there to the next step. So I think in your agenda there's a link called video. Hopefully it works for you.
Did you continue to teach the whole unit, or did you just stop there?
No, I continue to teach the whole unit, and I'll tell you later about how you plan it, but we worked on it maybe like 1 or 2 days a week. We continue with that. So I didn't like stop, because some of the time was in math, some of the time was in science. It wasn't only in Hebrew. Right, exactly. That's why we did the whole meeting and planning together.
How was the challenge of, what was the level of Ivrit for that class?
This is our program of Bishvil Ivrit / Neta. You know it. It was book 2. Beginning of book 2 is Tel Aviv. I would say beginners, mid-beginners. It's not very high Ivrit.
Did they write everything in Ivrit?
They wrote the presentation in Ivrit, and then they also presented in English, yes. You had a question?
No, I wanted to tell you about a resource. There's a resource, I gave a talk on project-based language learning at a conference last year. And there's a resource called Partnership for 21st Century Skills that tells you, maps how project-based learning applies in the language classroom and how the shift in today's classroom and why the project-based approach actually helps with 21st century skills.
So I would like to see it, and there's my email is there at the end of the agenda. Please share it with me. And anybody else who have ideas, please, I'll be happy to be in touch with you. Is anybody able to hear it? Okay, great, great. As you're watching, think about some questions that you might have. What would be like something that might be a challenge as you're working on something like that, and we'll try to answer it. Any challenges that you would think they would come out of this? The project from landfill to live field started in the Hebrew class. We learned about a place called Chiria, which is next to Tel Aviv in Israel. That was a very famous garbage dump, and it was changed by Israeli architects and designers into a wonderful park that teaches today about environment and also have shows and activity for families. From there, the students decided that they would like to do something similar here, and we launched a project that had to take a place in Florida and design something similar using 3 disciplines: the Hebrew to connect to Israel, the math in order to form a business plan, and the science in order to understand really what happens to garbage as it gets recycled and covered to make a park.
Our Hebrew teacher, Mora Kravitz, taught us about Park Ariel Sharon, and her idea was to give us a project, and our goal was to make something productive out of a landfill. So Mr. Gonzalez, our science teacher, helped us out, and he taught us all about landfill and how it works and the science behind it. And Mrs. Lopez, our math teacher, helped us out with the math and business behind it. She gave us a budget, and we saw how much everything cost to make our idea come true.
So the objective of this project was to expose students in order for them to be able to work math in the real world. So what we decided to do is to create a project that was interesting, that was pertinent, and they could think about how we can connect different classes into the real world problem. They decided that it was a good idea to get a place or like a dumpster, and from there they decided what can we do with this terrain or this place and become useful to the community. From there, they did different kinds of experiments with the science teacher, and we connected with a Hebrew school where they told us that that happened also in Tel Aviv. So from that point, we created a business plan using the math of it and using all the tools that they already have in there, like the addition, subtraction, and percents. And they worked as business managers. And from there, they also did a marketing plan to tell the community the importance of that place that would become for them. And it was very interesting for them because it was what happens in real life and how they use math in real life.
And what we did in our part of the project was actually we learned what a landfill is, because many people believe that a landfill is just a lot of waste and trash covered up with grass, and it's not like that. So in our part, my students and I, we researched about what's all the layers that make up a landfill. And they learned that actually the landfill is made of different separate layers that they have a function. They researched it and they did this beautiful model that is a glass cylinder which indicates what every single layer does. By doing that, the kids actually realized that there's a lot of engineering going into the project, and every single part is crucial to make the landfill work. And that's how they actually understood that you cannot build anything too heavy on top of it, because it's actually soil, but underneath what you have is trash. Once we did the model, we got the chance to go to a real landfill and see how actually they work every single day to make what we call a landfill work.
This project changed my vision of the environment by realizing how we need to do tikkun olam, and we need to do a better job at preserving our world. Working on a project with so many aspects like Hebrew, science, business, design, and math was challenging in some ways because we had to. There were so many requirements for each subject. But on the other hand, it really prepared me for the real world, because in the real world, you're not just going to need one skill. You're going to need to know how to do many things.
The project was really enjoyable. It wasn't just Hebrew and doing vocabulary in class. It was more of like using Hebrew and using it in a real life situation and making a business in it. And not only using Hebrew, but connecting it to other subjects such as science and math, because in the real world, you don't just use one subject. You have to connect them all together, and that's how you do something and be successful.
All right, so I'm going to move on. If you can watch it later, or if you didn't finish, but I think you mostly got an idea. And we presented this project to the Kohelet Prize. This is us, the 3 teachers who went on, and I told you that's the English teacher, she missed on that. And the Kohelet Prize is a $36,000 prize to the teachers. It's like 8, I think, project gets in every year from all United States Jewish school. So, and we won. We won this year. We won, I think, 6 actually. So this is our prize, and it was really nice to get a nice check and divided into between the 3 of us. So if you do something like this, don't hesitate to build it up and present it. So I now want to look into some challenges that might come and see how we can deal with them. What are some of ideas that you have, like, oh, it couldn't work in my school because, yes?
One of the big challenges as I'm trying to teach PBL is that I teach classes that have set curricula that need to be accomplished, whether they're state standards or an AP class in the high school. So it's a big challenge trying to fit in a project that doesn't, you know, I see the inherent value and I would really like to do it, but it doesn't fit in with the curricula that I also have to accomplish.
Right, so time is a challenge. And as you saw, the project did not completely go out of the curriculum. It did use things in the curriculum. And like I told her, I didn't use all of it as my time. There was time taken out from math class and time for science class. So you need a buy-in from some other teachers. And you need to figure out how much time you're going to use in class, how much time they're going to use other class. Usually they're pretty excited about it, that they really want to do it. And how much of your curriculum can fall into that. So you're not out of your curriculum, but you're really checking boxes of your curriculum, maybe in a different way. Okay, if it's writing, okay, it can tap into the English class. If you can put a Judaic elementary, it can tap in. Some classes are more flexible. You know, maybe Judaic can be more flexible, maybe Ivrit can be more flexible. Some I know have very set curriculum, so you can try, brainstorm with other teacher and brainstorm with the students. You know, how can this question kind of like grow from our curriculum? What are some challenges you were thinking of as you were working through this?
So something, we're at the same school.
Right.
So we, but you know the schedule when in like a school with 2 curriculums, it's really, the classes are short and we have very packed days. So when I think about a big project like this, I always want to collaborate with other teachers in my group, but I just wonder about the physical timing of it. Like, where are we going to be able to get all the students together to collaborate? And because I'd obviously want to oversee this and would want to make it 100% outside of class project, but just the logistics of it seems really challenging. It's easy to do something in your own classroom when you're 100% in managing it, but the collaboration and sharing the time and space would be a big challenge.
That's a great point. So choosing the class, choosing the group of kids, I do not recommend, okay, let's start with the whole 9th grade or the whole 8th grade. I actually chose a small class and thinking about it, I mean, it worked out that that class kind of raised that issue, but you can choose the student. You don't have to do it with all your students. Choose a student that their timing in the day is working out with other teacher, student you will know. So when you're starting something like this, start it easy. Don't put yourself in 20 million challenges on top of doing this. If you're starting something new, pick a small group of students. The student you know will be excited. The student you know will take it home and be responsible to doing it. The student you know you share with the other teacher who is flexible to do something like this. So you need to think about all these issues when you're choosing who to do it. And don't feel guilty. Well, I'm not doing it with everybody. This year I'm doing with this group. When this becomes a success, everybody is going to want to do it. So then everybody will be bending backwards to be working with you. Start easy, and it will grow into something that is bigger. Think about those things as you work through. You need to, these are the main things you need to work with a team of teachers. What is the driving question? What are the products we're going to create? Who is going to be our audience is really important. Your audience cannot be just other kids, because then it's not authentic. Audience needs to be real. Can we bring a business group of people? Can we bring a student from another school? Can we record it and send it to another country? It needs to be real, because then the student take it for real. And what way are we going to present it? Again, students, when they present, need to be presentable. You're preparing them for real life, and it doesn't matter if they're in kindergarten and they dress well, or they're in high school and they dress well. They just take it seriously when they're dressed for the part. Okay, and then you start backward. You start meeting with that group of teachers and have like the ending in vision and work down the steps. And then you come to the class and kind of say, it's open. When it's really not so open, you give them certain choices. Like I said to you, it feels like there's lots of choice, but you have an infrastructure already built. So in your agenda also, and I think here I have, go ahead, I have some links that you can use in order to actually build these things. So I put in the agenda some of these links. These are like a template to design an interdisciplinary project. This is a list of driving questions, and I built in a teacher timeline, a student timeline, and then the rubric. So I want to, can you click on the teacher timeline for a second? Okay, just to give you a sample of what it looks like. So I really build it week by week, okay? And it tells you exactly what you need to do as a teacher, pre-project planning, you know, how you go from week to week, and it's an 8-week long, you know, contact evaluation. So this is, if you, it doesn't mean that you're working every day of the week on that. 8-week, I'd say if you're working maybe 2 times a week, 3 times a week. If you want to work concentrated, it might not need an 8-week for, depending on your project. But that was my kind of like time frame. A lot of feedback throughout the week, meeting with the teachers, you know, to see where we are. So all this is building into the teacher timeline, and there's also a student timeline that you can access and you know, right. And you can like give to the student, and they have to make checks as they're doing. What are you, you know, are you there? Are you doing the research? Are you doing the written part? Are you doing, you know, a sample work? Do you have a model? What are your questions, feedback, and so on? Yes?
A lot of this work by the students was done at home?
No, a lot of it was done in class. Very, very little was done at home. A little bit of research if they had to do research in English to come with information to class. But most of it was done in class in small groups. They worked in partners, and they each chose an aspect of the project. One group was the ecological part, one group was the business, and one group was the architectural part of how we're going to actually build. So they had a choice in it, and together then they came out and presented the whole thing. So I would love to hear from you. If you really decide to launch something like this, shoot me a question. All the information is for you to use. All those are in the agenda. A lot of stuff that I worked on and helped me. And of course, the Better Lesson Lab has a lot of information-based, you know, a whole domain of project-based learning and a lot of information. And hopefully, if you're working with a coach, that will be the best thing, because here is my coach, and he was the best.
Well, I'm going to flip that one back, because I don't know that she shared this, but this is one of these other great growth stories with this partnership. may have started working with us as a participant in the summer of 2016.
Right.
We had 2 years, I think,
We
or
have
3
2 years, right. 2 years as coaching, and this
but
is.
now she's one of our coaches too. She's
So
one of
I'm
our
a better
coaches
lesson
too.
coach,
So
and
tomorrow she'll be facilitating the design studio with Juan, who is over there.
Yeah.
And she's coaching teachers virtually too all year. And in particular, we have some teachers who say, I want my coach to speak Hebrew real well, right?
Yes.
And so that's to me it's really cool. But she does way more than that. So grateful on Twitter.
Thank you. All right. So any questions? Any comments? Yes.
The only other thing is
Sure.
the National Foreign Language Resource Center in Hawaii, from Hawaii, is if you're a language teacher,
Right.
it has a lot of resources for project-based language learning.
Correct.
Yeah.
There are, I mean,
Yeah.
not so much for Hebrew,
No,
but
no,
if you're
but for
not
language,
Hebrew
yeah,
language,
then you
right.
apply it.
And in our school, we have other languages. We use Rosetta Stone for students have a choice of language. So if you, I mean, this is not like a full class with a teacher, but if you have other languages, and even if you don't, if you, like I said, even English in a different country is almost like a foreign language, kind of, to be communicating with a different culture. So that's something to think about.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.